Hey there, and welcome back for another one. We aren't doing our usual adventures today, and we have finished all of the Sweden clips. The last video last week of us hitting Gripsholm Castle and the Vasa Museum was the final video of Sweden. I am back in the US. I had to come home after that, unfortunately. But this episode is going to be kind of a Sweden wrap-up. Things to know if you're gonna go to Sweden that maybe I didn't get time to focus on talking about in the videos. Tips for anyone who's gonna go over there, basically. Obviously, if you're from Sweden, hi. You don't need to necessarily know about things because you already live there. But I wanna say, just tack så mycket för att du tittar på min kanal. I think that's how I say it. It has meant so much to me that you've all enjoyed my adventures through your country. And I very, very much appreciate all of the feedback I've gotten, all of the tips on places to go. My list of ground to cover and places to see now in Sweden has expanded way more than I ever thought it would. So thank you so much for everything. And I'm so glad all of you have been enjoying my videos. Now, I understand that it was probably more entertaining for you because they were places in your country. I do hope that all of you will keep watching my channel and my future adventures, because maybe you'll want to come to America and go on these adventures that are here. So I'm going to encourage it. But if you don't, I understand. And eventually I am going to get back to Sweden to visit cousins and cover more ground. And there will probably be another Sweden adventure segment. For right now though, I've got to go back to saving up money and just getting things rolling for other trips. We're rolling into backpacking season. Yeah, getting ready for some backpacking. Yeah. But again, thank you all so much for your support and watching my channel. And I hope you all enjoyed it so much. But we're gonna dive into talking about things I learned, things that are good to know if you're going to Sweden, and we're just gonna roll into it. Okay, let's start from what I would consider the top of planning this trip. Originally, when I was planning Sweden, I had planned it to be Sweden and Iceland, and I was just going to be independently looking at hotels or Airbnbs or Verbos and like booking everything independently and myself. For me, my grandparents, and my cousin. Some things hit some snags financially, and plans had to change. So instead of doing Sweden and Iceland, we just covered Sweden, which is totally fine. And to be honest, I think that was a much better way to do it for this trip, especially with 4 of us. But when plans changed, and I also had to think about budgeting and how much work it was going to take to independently reserve and book everything, I realized it was quite a bit much. And I decided to go on the Googles and see if I could find a travel agent that could help me out. I found a phenomenal group called Nordic Visitor, and I'll put the link to their website below. They do more than Sweden tours, and they've got multiple packages. They've got 2 to 3 day packages, week-long packages. You have self-drive tours, you have guided tours. They have so many, and it's Sweden, Finland, Iceland, Norway, the Nordic countries, hence why they're called Nordic Visitor. I do very much recommend, if you have never been and you're not 100% familiar with the Nordic country that you're going to go visit, perhaps looking at Nordic Visitor and the packages they offer. And let me note that the packages are not set in stone. I was able to actually email their travel agents and ask if I was allowed to modify the packages because we were going to be visiting family. So I needed a pause in between the package that I chose. I chose the self-drive 10-day classic Sweden tour, Southern Sweden tour. And I asked them if there was a way that I could keep the rental car, because they also helped with booking my rental car, which was phenomenal. really helpful actually, especially with the fact that I'm not very fluent in Swedish and I wasn't really sure how all that worked. So really great having that. But they helped me with that, and I wanted to make sure I could keep the rental car while we were still visiting family, but pause the tour so that, you know, the hotel they booked for us in Gothenburg was like a pause point, because then we were in Mirbeck for a number of days, and then we were able to just pick back up a reservation at the next hotel, which was in Örebro. And it was great. They totally let me modify the package, and it was phenomenal, just phenomenal. Not to mention, they're the reason I got the private tour in Stockholm. They took care of booking that, getting me my tour guide. When we arrived at the first hotel in Stockholm, they had a whole package set up with the hotel concierge to give me. It had a map in it. It had tips on things to know for common phrases, or how to find pharmacies, road laws, etc., things to help you out while you were there, since I was doing a self-drive tour. But they made sure everything was covered, and you were able to get a hold of them, and they could call you, all that kind of stuff. So if you're gonna go to one of the Nordic countries, I do recommend maybe checking out the Nordic Visitor site. Again, the link will be below. Okay, let's start from flying. Let's just start from the top now that we've covered Nordic Visitor. So in order to save money, but also have comfort for the grandparents, I went with Delta for the international flight. I had to fly from New Mexico to Chicago, so we could all have like a hub point. But then we flew from Chicago to JFK to go through customs and whatnot and get on the next flight that was going to take us to Stockholm. Very helpful, easy peasy to get there. On the way home, it was a little interesting because when you're flying out of Sweden, you're not necessarily always using Delta right away. They have partner airlines that we had to use. And so you might want to, if you're flying with Delta and when you're coming back, double check how to check in and check bags, because it's not always through Delta. Like the last night in Stockholm, I had to quickly make sure that we were checked in with the other airlines, and bags that needed to be checked were taken care of, and all that kind of stuff. So keep tabs on that. But Delta was great. If I'd had the money, I honestly wish I could have upgraded to first class. The seats we were in were not very fully reclinable. They had TVs and you could recline a little bit, but it was like your basic reclining, which I want to say that was a 9-hour flight to get to Stockholm and back. Just one way is 9 hours, almost 10. I have to watch a lot of movies because I couldn't sleep. If you're going for that long of a flight, having the full ability to recline does make it easier to sleep. Majority of the flight, they actually turn the cabin lights off and you can get snacks and everything, but it's so you can sleep. I didn't sleep. Not really. I just couldn't do it. The grandparents had no problem. They used the neck pillows. Neck pillows just don't work for me. So if I'd had the money though, I would have upgraded. So consider that for that long of a flight, if you actually want to sleep and you have difficulty sleeping sitting up and the neck pillows don't work, you might want to just save up that extra amount of cash just to upgrade to first class so you can fully recline. I have heard that there are other airlines that do international travel that are a little bit more affordable and have a totally different travel package hub thing that you get into, like a pod. I'm gonna look into that more for my next trip. The next trip is just gonna be me and maybe a friend or something, just one other person. So I might have the money for that, so we'll see. When you get to Stockholm, you don't pick up your rental car there if you're going through the way I was going through with Nordic Visitor. The rental location was actually right around the corner from our hotel. So in order to get from the airport to the downtown Stockholm, we used the Arlanda Express. It's phenomenal. It's a quick little train, doesn't cost that much. It's right at the airport. You just hop in the train and it takes you straight through to where you gotta go. And it was great because when I went through Nordic Visitor, I guess you call it a train station, yeah. The train station is right there, right across the street from our hotel, so that worked out great. So I wasn't worrying about trying to get us from the train station to the hotel with luggage and everybody. Now a note for you, if you have the time and the ability, you honestly don't need a car to get around Sweden. A vast majority of the population in Sweden doesn't even own a car. Their local transportation is phenomenal compared to America's. You've got trains that go everywhere. You can get buses really easy. You can bike everywhere. They're really safe for biking. So if you're a big biker, awesome country for being a biker. They just got tons of transportation covered. You really don't need to own a car there. However, because we had a lot of ground to cover and we had luggage and I had the family and I just wanted to make sure we were going to be keeping schedule and break away to go do other side adventures from the main stops, I decided to go with not a minivan. It was a Skoda. It's a Czech car. It was actually really cool. I really liked it. I really liked the car actually. Kind of wish I could have it here. It had great gas mileage. I liked the cruise control setting. It was really nice. I liked it. Little Skoda. But that was why I went with a car though, because of worrying about time schedules and getting us on and off trains and buses with luggage and more. But if you're going by yourself or maybe just two people and you don't really have much, you could definitely just skip the rental car and go that route. So just so you know, that's an option. Now, driving in Sweden. There's a lot of interesting things, but I quite honestly appreciated driving in Sweden more than I like driving here in the US. The misconception that a lot of Americans have who have never been there, and it's a first question you're probably gonna get when people start asking you if you're driving, is what side of the road does Sweden drive on? There are parts of Europe that drive on the opposite side of America. So we have this misconception that Sweden would too. Sweden doesn't, they switched. You drive on the same side of the road and car as you do here in the US. So if you're going to go drive in Sweden, that's easy. Their highways are intriguing to me, and I really like it. Most of the highways are a 2-lane setup through the country areas, and even like as you're in cities, like got more little lanes, but majority of the roads are 2 lanes, and they have 2 lanes on purpose, and everybody's very much a stickler to it. You only go to the left lane to pass. As soon as you pass, you instantly go right back over. And they follow it. I mean, driving through Sweden, without fail. Everyone, you just hit your cruise control, you pop over, you go, you pass. It was very smooth. There was only a couple parts when we were driving through Sweden that some people weren't really doing that. But I'd say about 98% of the time I drove in Sweden on those highways, on the 2-lane roads, they stuck to it as though it was just the rules and they weren't about to break them. And you would think that you don't have to follow the rules. They're really good at self-regulating. I don't think I saw any police on the highway or on the roads. No, the only time I ever saw a police officer or a car was in the cities. I never saw it driving around places. They don't even really worry about speeding. They have these poles that sit along the highways that are cameras. About so many distance ahead of the camera, you'll get a little sign that lets you know there's a camera, and you'll slow down. But that's how they regulate the speed. They just have cameras that catch the picture of your car and your license plate. It's rather intriguing. And then I guess they just mail you the speeding ticket. Or if it's a rental car, they would send the speeding ticket to the rental company. Which, speaking of tickets, parking tickets. I mentioned this in another video. I got a parking ticket while in Sweden, in Kalmar. Which is why if you're traveling through Sweden, every hotel you go to, if you were doing a self-drive such situation, you should always ask, is the parking lot theirs? The one in Kalmar, because it was in front of the hotel, I thought it was their parking lot. I didn't think anything of it. Off to the side, there was another little shopping center that had other parking that wrapped around. But again, I didn't think much of it. They didn't say anything to me when we checked us in. I should have asked and I didn't. Turns out the parking lot in front of the hotel in Kalmar belongs to the shopping center, not really them. You have to get the Easy Park app so that you can do it. The Easy Park app works through the majority of Sweden that I covered. Just download that app, put in your stuff. whenever you park somewhere, it'll pick you up on their little map, and you click the thing and you can set your timer and you can adjust it and all that from your phone. It's actually pretty nifty. If you get a parking ticket though in Sweden, it's not as easy to take care of it as you would hope, unless you're a Swedish citizen. The way they have their setup for how you pay tickets, fines, fees, things for the government, it's a direct deposit from your bank. It's interesting. So at first I was trying to figure out the parking ticket, and the poor, like I said, the majority of Sweden doesn't own cars. The poor hotel clerk, I asked him to help me figure out how to pay the ticket. He doesn't own a car, he's never owned a car, so he's never had a parking ticket, so he had no idea. It was quite an endeavor to Google and try and figure it out. I had to call our cousin and ask her. So it turns out, if you're gonna pay a parking ticket or speeding ticket, you can't unless you're a Swedish citizen, because you would need to log into a certain bank account. You would need to attach your bank information to the ticket and then direct deposit over. But you can't direct deposit over unless you have this bank, and you can't have this bank unless you're a Swedish citizen. So if you get a ticket while you're in a rental car, they will then send it to the rental company, and you'll pay the rental company pays it for you. However, they charge a fee to take care of this ticket for you. And the fee costs as much, if not more, than the ticket you got. It was the cheapest parking, it was $9 for the conversion. Of course, the krona had dropped when we were there. So if it was higher, it probably would have been a little bit more expensive, but it was only maybe $9 after the exchange rate. Cheapest parking ticket I've ever seen. In order to avoid the fee, I got lucky because we have family there. My cousin just took care of it for me, and I just gave her the money and she paid it through her bank account, so that I didn't have to pay the fee for the rental company. So if you have family, that's a great way to do it. If you don't, you're gonna be paying a fee and the ticket to your rental company. So just get that Easy Park app. When we were in Gothenburg, I had to get a different parking app just for Gothenburg. And there was a different app when we were at the Gurta Canal. But for the most part, Easy Park covered pretty much everywhere. Another good thing to know and look at, I'm not gonna go over all of them, road signs. You definitely want to learn your road signs for Sweden before you go drive in Sweden, because some of them are very different than what you're used to. Stop signs are pretty staple. But when you're driving through the countrysides, there's extra signs, and I can't remember what they said now off the top of my head. But basically it was exits and entries, because the farmers who lived along the country roads could have a house on one side of the road and a barn on the other side of the road of their property, and the road goes through. So it would basically be a sign to warn you that you were coming upon like a crossing area or an entry area or an exit area. So you needed to slow down. So things to know or things like that. Another nifty thing to know if you're driving through the countryside, I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And me and my grandpa were like, why do we keep seeing these everywhere? There are little black cat little signs that they post along the road. We kept seeing them everywhere, and we're like, what's with the black cat? We even saw a giant one that went somewhere. Not sure where, but it went somewhere. I think it was like a shopping center. I don't know. Turns out, if you see that little black cat, that is them signaling to you that they have a farm cat or an indoor-outdoor cat that could be crossing the road. And that's them asking you to be aware and slow down and make sure you don't run over their cat. So if you see the black cats along the other side of the road, keep an eye out. Don't run over their cat. Don't be those people. But those are really cool. I actually really like the fact they have those. That was nifty. I mentioned in the video of Gothenburg, I did not like driving in Gothenburg. I love driving everywhere else but Gothenburg. Well, there was Örebro had some things, but there was traffic, which ties into Google. Don't trust Google Maps necessarily. One, it had no idea there was construction going on in Örebro. It kept trying to get me to turn, and there was no ability to turn. The whole road was blocked. Google did not know there was construction. And also Google doesn't always know where things actually are. It'll take you to the middle of nowhere and you're just sitting there like, I don't see the thing I'm looking for. Because it doesn't know. It does get you close to some places because Sweden does have the right to roam, which we'll touch on that in a second. So really it's getting you to a near point and then you have to go wander off to go find the thing. But if you have a grandfather who is uncomfortable with the right to roam, that doesn't happen. So be aware. And that's okay, Grandpa, if you're watching this. I totally understand. It's just not what we're used to. Totally fine. But yeah, don't trust Google Maps necessarily all the time. And that also ties into Gothenburg. Google Maps struggled with getting me through the correct lanes of Gothenburg. But also, Sweden in general has a ton of roundabouts. It's how they regulate traffic, totally fine with it. I actually really enjoyed them. But they have little tiny roundabouts, plus they have like trolley trams, and you've got all the people on bikes and the pedestrians always have right of way. But you have all of that going on, plus drivers, pedestrians who know they have the right of way, and so they're just crossing. On top of the trams, driving in Gothenburg was very stressful for me. And everything was very tight. So if you're also getting a rental car in Sweden, be mindful of the fact that you don't want too big of a vehicle. A lot of things in older cities of Sweden are smaller, tighter, compact roads. Sorry, my notes, huh? And so if you got too big of a car, you're gonna struggle fitting in places and parking. The hotel in Gothenburg, the parking lot was underground. Had the car been any bigger, there's no way I could have gotten in there to park the car. I was so nervous about hitting my side view mirrors going into the entryway and then turning around on the bottom. Just need a tiny car or no car at all in Sweden. But that's fine. Yeah, everywhere else I love driving. I just loved it. Just not there. Sorry, guys. Another good thing to know if you're going to be driving yourself through Sweden, gas pumps. When it comes to getting your receipt out of a gas pump, I didn't know it at first. We had to learn it from a clerk. I was just like, how am I supposed to get the receipt? I've also been told there's another way, and one of the comments from one of the other people who commented about how to get it, but this clerk, like you put your card in to pay, you take it out, you pump your gas. In order to get your receipt, you put your card back into the machine, not to get charged a second time, but just so it generates the receipt for you. And apparently there's another way to do it too that someone told me about, but now I've already forgotten it, sorry. So I've just been sticking to you put card back in after you're done, it'll give you your receipt and you're good to go. So things to know about that. If you're stopping for pit stops inside of the gas station, not just to get gas, but to use the bathrooms, be aware that, and this is one that me and Grandma talked about when we were in the apple orchards. Sometimes the toilets are a little different than ours, and that's fine. They're pretty much the same, but looking for toilet paper can be in a weird spot, like way behind the toilet in some of the gas stations or somewhere across the wall. So just, don't panic. Just look around and it might be in a weird spot. Another thing to note, the locks on a majority of the bathroom handles for gas stations were not your standard like push lock or twist lock. Their handle, and they'll usually have a picture with a green and a red. You go in and you literally flip the whole handle up or down, depending on the handle. It'll tell you, and it locks it that way. And then when you go to leave, you just pop back up and you're good to go. So that's another difference that kind of threw us for a loop, but it was actually pretty cool. They also have some really interesting gas station foods that I got to try. Like they're really big about health, and so they have a bunch of gummy vitamins too. So you can get gummy vitamins with zinc and all sorts of candy. And they take like a French roll, they hollow it out, and they put a hot dog in there. And then they have this sauce. I would always get the garlic sauce. That thing was amazing. I forgot what it's called. It's probably not healthy for you, but it tasted so good. And since it's in like the French wrap, you can eat it while you're driving easily. It's really, really easy. It was really good though. So I encourage you to try that if you like kind of like a makeshift hot dog with garlic and you're there at the gas station. One last and final thing to note on if you were driving through Sweden, and this is pretty crucial, especially if you're used to driving in America. Here in America, our diesel is a green handle, and we always go for the black handle here for the regular, correct? Yes. When you are in Sweden, if you are self-driving, do not fill your car with the black pump in Sweden. They are reversed. The green one is the one you want for your regular. The black handle is your diesel there, essentially. Do not fill your car up with that if it's not a diesel. So that's the last and final main thing to know about as far as driving that I can think of right now in Sweden. That's crucial to know. Don't grab the black pump. Green handle in Sweden. Green handle. I didn't do it on accident. I was warned, but I figure I should let you guys know. The next thing to talk about is briefly hotels. Pretty much every hotel you go to in Sweden, their front staff is gonna have English-speaking people, so don't worry about that. I only encountered a couple hotels along the countryside where their staff wasn't very strong at the English, but they could figure it out, and they had other ones come over and help them if they weren't very fluent in it. So don't worry, you've always got an option. Sweden, a vast majority of Sweden does speak English. It was only in a few parts along the countryside that I encountered people who didn't speak any English. And Google Translate is your friend for that. I absolutely loved Google Translate while I was there. It was so helpful. Even with signs, you can just point the camera at it, click it, and it would translate like the sign for you. It was great. I loved it. So Google Translate, phenomenal app to have. Most hotels in Sweden have an awesome breakfast spread. You'll get to encounter traditional staple Swedish like pancakes and other things. They also have ginger shots for the morning. I loved those. I want to figure out how to make those myself. They also, a good chunk of them, if you're there at the right time, provide Fika. So Fika is a tradition in Sweden in the afternoon that everyone stops for coffee and cake. It's pretty great. And a couple of the hotels actually supplied it, and you'll just see everyone go down there for coffee and cake for about an hour, and then they all disappear. It's just an extra break in the middle of the day to relax and decompress. I quite appreciate it as far as traditions go, and I very much wish that America had something like that. That was just standard socially acceptance across the board. Because we work ourselves to death here, where in Sweden, they're very much bigger on the work-life balance and health of their people, way more than America, with America's grind mentality. It's not healthy for us, guys. We really shouldn't be doing the grind all the time. It's not good for us. So, if only we could pick up some habits from Sweden, that'd be amazing, like Fika. Most of the hotels across the board all had gyms, all had saunas. Again, they're very big about health and taking care of themselves and their people. So they're always kind of supplying that. And they have a bunch of public gyms that you can just go pay to use for the day. It's actually pretty cool. They're really big about health factors, especially probably in the winter. They got to make sure everyone's still being active. Gym memberships are super cheap. But if you just want a day pass, you can totally just go do a day pass if you don't want to do the hotel gym and sauna. But if you are someone like me who likes to go to the gym regularly as their decompression, don't worry, you have that option. And pretty much, I think the only hotels that didn't have gyms were the one in Vedstina. But that one has a building separate that had like a sauna and all that stuff, and I think they might actually have a gym, and I just didn't see it because the time of the day that we rolled in and then left the next morning just wasn't an option to explore it. So that one might actually have one, and I just don't know it, but I know they definitely have a spa and sauna. But yeah, they all pretty much have them, so you're covered there. And I think I talked about it when we were in Erlbro, when I was showing you my room. I talked about the lights and your card. Your room key card in the hotels in Sweden, majority of them, not all of them for me had them, but every single hotel for my grandparents, it was in their room. Your key card to get in and out is also your controller for your light. You put it in there, this little slot inside your door, and then you can turn everything off. That way, when you leave and you take the key card with you, you're not accidentally leaving lights on, you're conserving energy. I quite appreciate that practice. It'd be kind of interesting to see them do more of that here in the US. Maybe in the future, who knows? But the only other thing I can think about hotels is definitely take advantage of your free breakfast, take advantage of your Fika, and if you ever need help, just ask the clerks. They're very friendly. And there's always usually a bar. You can always ask the bartender for something. But that wraps up things that I can think of for hotels. If you have other questions, obviously, go ahead and ask them and I'll answer. Okay, the next section is just random other tidbits that I think are good to know that I discovered along the way that could just be helpful for you. While I was in Vadstena, I wandered into a grocery store. Grocery stores are a little different than what they are here in the US, which is fine. So in the US, we have very much a corporate America. Corporatization, I think, there's benefits, there's pros and cons. In Sweden, they are very big on private business owners and people being able to independently run a business and have a specialty thing that they focus on. So when you're shopping in Sweden, you can't just go to, say, Walmart or Walgreens and find a majority of things in one place, which, yes, does seem convenient. We are, though, the country that's doing the grind, so we're trying to save time. In Sweden, they aren't doing the grind. They're relaxed. They have mostly 4-day work weeks, so they have plenty of time off to go do the errands and socialize and relax. They have universal health care that, yes, they pay higher taxes, but then you don't have to worry about retirement. You don't have to worry about your medical stuff. It's taken care of. They pay a higher tax, but it's them saving money in the long run on other things that we spend a ton of money on because we get gouged on prices. But I digress. The grocery stores there are not like the ones here. You can't just go to one and find vitamins or anything. You have to find a specific pharmacy or a apotek. I think they're called apotek. I could be wrong. But they're similar. It kind of sounds like that because it kind of looks like that. A-P-O-T-E-K, apotek. That is your pharmacy. The people who work there, the pharmacists, are highly trained. Very trained. And they've got everything medical-wise that you could think of. So if you're looking for makeup or vitamins or medical supplies, anything of that nature, you have to find a pharmacy or apotek specifically. You will not find them in a grocery store. They also have different carts. I'd never seen them before. I've been told that they do exist in the US, but I have never, ever in my life had ever seen a cart like that, and I love it. You go in, and they're on the ground on wheels, and you just pull them. They're little shopping carts. Because when you're at the grocery store, you're not getting everything. You're getting a few things here or there. You're not like getting a giant shopping cart like we do, where we do the bulk buy to save time. I quite appreciated the little shopping carts. It was cute. I liked it. And man, the assortments of cheese, they have so many cheeses. And they come in like tubes. So many flavors. So many things I wanted to try while I'm there. They do have gluten-free stuff too as well, in case you're curious. But so many foods I want to try. They are generally bagless across Sweden. If you go to the grocery store, they do sell you bags. I did not see them when I went to the grocery store. I was so just taking everything in, I was distracted. They're by the front registers in case you do need a bag for future reference. I just carried my armful back to the hotel and people just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, they looked a little crazy that I didn't have my own bag. But that is an option. And so the reason I mention that is because that way you're not thinking that grocery store is where you're going to get things that you need at the pharmacy and all that kind of stuff. but you should definitely go check out a grocery store and a pharmacy if you're in Sweden. They were quite impressive. They had so many just little shops, and I love it. Oh, I love how Sweden's done their setup. It's great. Paying for things. If you're gonna go shopping in these shops, make sure you find a card with a 0 foreign transaction fee. I specifically got a credit card that didn't have any foreign transaction fees, so I definitely recommend it, because if you think about the amount of times you're going to be using it in different shops, whether it be for gas or for groceries or museums or just anything, every transaction getting a fee for a foreign transaction fee is going to start to add up. So definitely look at a 0 foreign transaction fee if you're going to go to any country, not just Sweden. And then double check though that your cards cover whatever country you're going to, because there are some that it doesn't work in certain countries. Luckily, mine worked in Sweden, no problem. Things to also think about if you're going to be going to a foreign country, if you need to be able to access things, your phone. I have Verizon, and they have a travel pass set up that you can activate for 30 days or for 24 hours or a week at a time. I thought you had to call to activate it ahead of time. That might have been how it used to be when my dad went to India when I was younger. He said he had to call and activate it. When I had the grandparents talk to Verizon and I talked to Verizon, they're like, oh no, it's in your account. You just text X thing to this location and it activates it for you. And every morning it'll pop back up being like, hey, travel pass is gonna renew, that kind of stuff. And it does like roaming and all that. It's a whole thing, but it does make it to where you can actually use your phone while you're still there. Now, granted, if you're in Sweden, if you're trying to call Swedish numbers, you got to remember there are different rules that apply, and I always forget it. I kept messing it up. There's a 1, or no, there's a 9, and there's other numbers. Their area codes don't work like ours. I'm still trying to figure out the calling of Swedish numbers. I'm getting there. We eventually figured it out, because I did call my cousin on her cell phone from my cell phone, so we figured it out eventually. But she had a phone number that's attached to her computer, that's an American number, and then she had her Swedish number, this whole thing. But if you're gonna go to a foreign country, if you have like Verizon, you have the travel pass. If you don't have Verizon, I'm pretty sure some of the other carriers do have alternate options. My cousin, she actually was gonna have a separate SIM card to use while she was there or something, I think. I don't remember. But look at your phone company and check on that so that you have an ability to use your Google Maps, or be able to text somebody. Like you don't want to call, but that way you can at least text people, let them know where you're at, what you're doing, that you're okay. In regards to also money, tipping is not required in Sweden. The gratuity is already calculated into your receipts. Now, unlike how I've been told by some people who've gone to France who did accidentally tip and their servers got almost offended with them, Sweden will not get offended with you. A tip is not required, but they won't say no to it either. They just appreciate it if you're trying to be extra generous. But you don't have to tip, so just as a heads up, that's not a custom for them. And I know it's kind of a weird thing to mention, but it's something that comes up a lot when you people traveling internationally, because they don't know what the customs are for the society they're going to. So just putting it out there, since we're talking about money and 0 foreign transaction fees and phones, don't worry about tipping, but you can if you want to. You won't offend them. I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head that's like super important to know if you're going to be going to Sweden to travel. Everyone in Sweden is very friendly. There were only a couple random instances where in Stockholm we had run into some weird political stuff going on. And actually it was quite interesting. Quite a few people, and if you're on here, thank you, did explain to me that they were apologizing for the people who were yelling at my grandfather. That is not a normal occurrence. And you know what, I believe them, it's not a normal occurrence. In America it might be, but not there. And like I told them, those were young kids. I don't know what was going on. Emotions were heated. Hopefully they learned that wasn't okay later. We'll find out. We won't find out, but hopefully they do. So majority of people in Sweden are very helpful, very friendly. If you get lost or you need help or you're not sure about something, and since the majority of them speak English, just feel free to ask somebody for help or ask them a question. Who knows, you might make new friends. I now have new friends from Sweden that I'm talking to on a regular basis, getting to learn even more about the culture and everything else. And it's been quite eye-opening, and I'm getting help with my pronunciation. It's been great. But yeah, society-wise, one of the things that maybe are worth mentioning, like I talked about earlier, was the right to roam. In Sweden, it is instilled in them, kind of like it is in Norway as well. I think maybe Finland, I'm not sure. We are human beings, and we are part of nature, and we need to explore. The right to roam means that you can cut through someone's, say, field or part of their property to, say, get to a waterfall or a trail or something. The rules to it, though, are if you are going to be entering and crossing into somewhere, no infringing on their livelihood, which means do not harm their crops, do not harm their cattle or whatever they produce or have. Do not hurt their property. All right, be respectful. But you can totally cut across like a grass field to get to, say, a waterfall that's behind their property. Some of them are not as pro for it now as they used to be, I've been told by some of the locals who were there. There are some farmers who aren't a huge fan of people cutting through the property, but they'll put no trespass signs up if they don't. If there's not a no trespass sign, that probably means that person's totally fine with it, as long as you're not hurting their property or anything that they own. You can just shortcut through. So be prepared for that, because you can just wander. It is quite, you're just roaming. And that has to do with the Sami people up north. That is just a cultural staple thing for their society, because the Sami were wanderers, or nomadic. So that's where that's there. Hoping that will last. I guess they've been having some issues. Like I said, not everyone's thrilled about it. And there's been some debacles, but for now, that is an option. As well as all man's rights. Now, all man's rights, where you got to make sure you definitely aren't going to get in trouble. All man's rights means, let's say you're in the forest and you come across an apple tree and it has apples. If you don't see anyone's house or home or business within sight of that tree, you're allowed to pick that tree and eat that apple. There are pear trees, there are berries and mushrooms. The locals will go out into the forest and they will collect mushrooms to cook things. As long as you're not, again, like on a farmer's land, eating their livelihood, you can, all man's rights is in play. And I'll put links below talking about the right to roam and the all man's rights. I know Sweden's having some issues with the all man's rights because they have some companies that are out of Sweden that are sending people over from their countries to go into the forest and pick all of these mushrooms and all of these fruits and berries and then bring them back and sell them, leaving basically none left for the locals who are from Sweden, which is a tradition for them. So they are starting to run into some issues with having that being allowed to all man's rights. And they might have to maybe put some regulations into play. I don't know yet. It was something my cousin and I were talking about while I was there. It's quite a shame that there are companies coming in and taking advantage of that. And it's all out of greed. Greed is the root problem of a lot of things. I'm hoping that Sweden will be able to keep that. But keep posted on that one. If you're going to go to Sweden, just updates. Just check to make sure this is up to date, because it is 2024. I don't know if things are going to change in the future. Who knows? Well, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that I think is going to be super helpful to know right now. I hope that you all enjoyed the videos and you go and see some of these places yourself, even if you are from Sweden and you didn't know that you were even there, because I had a lot of people tell me they didn't even know these things were there in their own country. Definitely go check it out. Sweden's got so much history, and I love that country. Your country's amazing. I wish I was there, like all the time almost. I have debated it because I have family there. How hard could it be? But the company I work for doesn't exist there. No. Who knows? Maybe in the future. I don't know. But Sweden's quite spectacular. I love Sweden. Jag älskar Sweden. Sverige. Jag älskar Sverige. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your country with me. It was phenomenal. For those of you who have never been to Sweden, go visit Sweden. Go see it. I have so much more ground to cover, but just of the amount that I did cover, which was quite a bit. You got plenty of videos to look at. Oh, I can't wait to go back and see more. Sweden is just spectacular. I love it. So definitely go see it. If you liked the video or if you liked the videos, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button and follow along for more adventures, because as always, there will be more, I promise. And just as a heads up, now that I'm done with the Sweden section, I am going to be going back to my normal routine of camping and backpacking. There's only a couple episodes left of this season. You're going to be a backpacking trip. And then we'll be bloopers. And then we'll be done for the summer break and all the stuff I've been doing the last few months in Sweden. That's going to be in season 5. That'll be coming, don't worry. I got to take my summer break though. Let work-life balance, even from hobbies. Gotta go accumulate some mileage and go cover some ground. So I have things to share with you. So, with that being said, until the next one, you guys have a good one. Later.